Okay, me again, same place, same time, and my notebook, which I'm kind of my favorite one in which I write in recently a lot because I normally use the keyboard and the laptop, but recently I was really into writing, with pen and paper. You can see the pages. Well, it's upside down, but you can see the pages here filled by stuff. Maybe that will be for the thumbnail of the video. But yeah, I'm kind of holding it because it's so warm and not warm, but it's so thick and comforting. I kind of feel like another topic, which is a bit more improvised and a bit less of a quote to put in the title of the video, but another topic is about all of those thousand decisions that you make when writing your manuscript, and you can't even explain why you make those decisions. It's actually fascinating to me because people teach a lot about writing, a lot about plot, a lot about structure, a lot about rhythm, a lot about language, a lot about heroes and heroines and characters and the story arc or whatever, like first act and then the third act and then the problems in the fourth act or whatever. People teach about writing dialogue, about speech, but the actual fact is during the novel you take so many decisions, and most of them are unconscious. Most of them you can't even explain. Like most of the stuff that actually happens when I am writing, I can't even explain. Like it varies if I'm writing a non-fic, meaning like something based on my own life. In one of the previous videos, I was reading an extract, and this was based on my own life. Here, I don't have to make decisions because this is based on my experience, but I do have to make decisions about the angle under which I will be telling it. I do have to make decisions about the length, to make decisions about what I'm going to mention, whether it's going to be personal or not. A lot of those types of decisions, but I'm talking specifically about fiction here. And when you write something fictional, so something purely imaginary and something long as well, with a lot of people, even though not all of what I've written has had a lot of people in it, but most of it actually had. By a lot of people, I mean more than like five, main characters. Like at least like two main characters and then another like three to four supporting cast. But the thing is, a lot of those decisions you just make. I don't know. It's this invisible thing, which is kind of the wheel or something, and you're holding onto that wheel and you're kind of turning that wheel, but you can't even explain why you're making those decisions. You're just kind of grabbing onto the idea as it comes, and it's this, and there's so many of them, like literally. And I would like very much to kind of like after the story is finished, after the manuscript is finished, you kind of are so filled with all of that stuff that you decided and all of that stuff that you'd like to talk about and all of that stuff that you thought was going to be one way, but in the end it turned out another way. That you kind of want to talk for 8 hours about all the different stuff that you decided during writing it, but then again it fades away so quick that sometimes you can't even catch it anymore. And I'm trying to kind of think what I mean here. Um, to illustrate it with something. Often, for example, there is this decision, which many writers actually make, sorry, where the key event, this might be actually told in some of those writing seminars, so I might be repeating those, but who knows. Where the main event, like the actual event, is out of the book. And this is the trope or the thing that I unconsciously, I think, made a lot of times. Like for example, I don't know, someone is falling out of the window You are not really describing the way this person is falling down and like falling onto the pavement. You might describe how he takes the step out of the window, but you might describe what happened right before, but you are not describing the actual fall. Or, for example, someone died, but you're not describing the actual death. Again, very common thing and very, I think, sensible. Well, sensible. It works for a lot of manuscripts, it works for a lot of writing, where you're not describing the most painful thing, like the death itself, because it's, I don't even know, like, very few classics I feel along human history has been have been able to describe it in any way possible. But you're not describing this, you are describing what happened around, or like, for example, who called whom, who cried and who was calm, who reacted in what way, whose facial expression was this and that, who was at their apartment at the time and who had to take tickets and come. You're kind of describing all this chaos that is happening around the death, but you are not describing the death itself. And I feel like it's very, very, very common, and it works very, very, very well. And you're describing the feelings also of the person who lost that person. You're describing that void that leaves, that is left, that hole. Well, I'm kind of getting lost in my own head, but and the camera is shaking a bit again. But I feel like all those decisions where, for example, one thing which comes to mind immediately is Secret History by Donna Tartt, where the actual murder, the actual bad thing, you know, this group of people did, it's not described. The actual thing, like the actual scene, the actual doing of the bad thing is not described. More than that, I think they did it twice, minimum twice in the book. They murdered someone, and it's not described. It's not in the manuscript, it's not in the book, and it's not needed. But it's very interesting how that decision is made. And this is one of the writer's decisions, what to keep out and what to put in. Another thing that is important is kind of who is going to meet whom at what time and how they're going to react to each other, and the way, how to say, like, for example, if you're trying to put two people together in a love story or in some kind of dynamic, how will this be progressing? Because if you're writing a love story, you have to make decisions about where certain things will happen, for example, the first kiss or the first time sleeping together, or you also make decisions on whether you are describing it from the future into the past or from the past into the future. So basically, whether someone is right now describing the way they've met, or the story begins where they've met and then at the end they arrive in the future. So this also is important, at what sequence of events are being described. Like, again, an example from one of mine, the one which I kind of finished in February and also sent out to a few people, neither of whom have given me any feedback yet, but I'm still hoping. But basically, there was this very interesting POV that I kind of, again, intuitively sensed. I didn't really know where this was coming from, but I could sense that this guy, who was the main protagonist, the narrator, he knew a lot about the city he was living in, and he knew much more than the reader, and much more than probably even me. It's weird, but sometimes your protagonist knows more about the world than you do. Even though you did create the world and the protagonist as well. But he had that tone, like I grabbed onto like him, and like that tone where he was a bit arrogant, and he knew a lot about the city, and he knew a lot about what's happening, and he knew a lot about the political regime, and he knew a lot about the organization that ran the city and about the way things work. And he was a bit like a rat living in the gutters and knowing all the secrets of the city. and he knew and he understood what happened in the underworld and in the normal world, and he was kind of like able to go into any door or spy after any person. He was very, I I wrote him in a way that he's very powerful that way. He has a lot of influence. Sorry, not influence, like influence on people, not influence. Influence is not the right word. He has a lot of ability and has a lot of understanding and a lot of background. Like he clearly knows what happened. He clearly knows that there was some kind of like governmental change, and he clearly knows the ins and outs of the city, but he's not that rushed to reveal it all. And this was again a decision, and also my decision, and like the POV from which the story was being told, because this guy was revealing a lot of information as he went through the city and as he went through like the stuff that he was doing there, like throughout the book. And it was clear that he's like a professional someone and he knows a lot, but it was also clear that he is not in a hurry to explain. And it's very interesting when you're writing a protagonist, you're writing from the first, from the first uh, sense, like as you're writing like from the protagonist's voice, not in the third sense, but in the first one. Like I'm going, I'm doing, and I was writing as him, but I knew that he did not want to reveal a lot of stuff, and he's kind of elusive about a lot of things. And his work is also like that. It's elusive. He is not about to be caught. And this was a very interesting disposition to have. This was a very interesting voice to kind of have with me. And I sometimes even felt like it was not even my voice or something. This is where we are going into this that dynamic of going insane again, because I often felt like while I was writing it that it's not even like, I don't know, I don't empathize with some of the decisions he's making. I don't like agree with the stuff that he wants to say. Like I'm not him, he's not me, but we are working together, and he's this guy clearly doesn't want to reveal a lot of things, and clearly wants to allude to certain things. He's like, yeah, that happened and that happened and that happened, but he's never describing anything in any detail. In the detail that the reader wants it to. And he's never like getting into the things where this year this happened, this year this happened, this year this happened. He just lives in this reality, and for him it's the normal reality. And he's elusive about what's happening because he's kind of telling the story the way he wants to. He doesn't want to go into the historical thing. He doesn't want to go into what happened there. He doesn't want to like explain that, yeah, this organization has this structure and this is the chief and this is this and this is this, this is this. He's just describing what he's saying. And again, this is not a new thing. One example of this is 1984. I feel like 1984 by George Orwell. If you have read it, the classic English literature novel, extremely, extremely frightening, extremely horrifying. I mean, it's one of the most horrifying books I've ever read in my life. Ever, ever. It's one of the most chilling, horrible books ever. It's it's horrifying to the point of, I mean, it's not horror, but it is horrifying, believe me. And again, this guy lives in this world where there's clearly totalitarian government, and there's clearly screen spying on people, and clearly things happening, and he's just describing what he sees. He's not describing, like, I don't think, a lot of background, a lot of things that happened. He's just focused on his reality, and he's describing his reality, like his reality is here. And he's looking at it and he's describing that. He's not giving us much of a historical reference, how this big brother came to be. He could have done, I could be wrong, but I don't think that he's like being that heavy on the history because he is living in it. And the same thing happened kind of with my protagonist. He's living in it. He has a job to do. Like his POV is like, I have a job to do. I know a lot about the city, but I'm going to talk about what I'm interested in talking about. I'm going to talk about what I want to talk about. If I don't want to like name any names, I will not name any names. And my whole manuscript doesn't contain any fucking names. If I'm not going to specify how this works, I'm not going to specify how this works, and the whole manuscript doesn't contain any specifications. And the thing is, I had to go with that voice, and I had to go with that. I just had to surrender, because sometimes you just get those intuitive decisions of what you should do, what you shouldn't do, where you should go, where you shouldn't go. And it's extremely fascinating because you can't quite explain to anyone why the fuck did you make that decision, and why the fuck did you like write it from this POV and not from another POV. And I think that a lot of, like, most of the writers have those decisions and have those dilemmas and have those conversations inside their heads. Or maybe not. Maybe they are so intuitive that they just going through for it. Because I feel like the best thing is when you are so intuitive, you are just going. You're just going, you're just going, you are not asking any questions. If like three new heroes or three new characters walk in, you're not asking any questions. If someone like asks a provocative question to the protagonist and you have no idea what he will respond, you are not asking questions. Like you are just going, 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 going. And if you are at the place where you have nowhere to go, that means that you fucked up and you have to go back again. And yeah, but I'm endlessly actually I am not sure if it's like I even forgot about everything while I was talking about this because I was so deep in it inside my head. But I'm endlessly fascinated with the way this works. I'm endlessly fascinated by all those decisions I'm making and all of those turns I'm taking to arrive at the end of the novel. And I'm endlessly fascinated by the shit that's happening. Because sometimes that's maybe for another video, but you feel like some things are happening on the page that you couldn't ever fucking predict. You couldn't ever anticipate. Things are just happening there. Chemistry is just happening there, and that's it. And you just gotta let the floods open, let the gates open. Sorry.